Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for the privilege of being gathered together in this brand new facility. We thank Thee for the privilege of living or working in this special part of the world. As we start this special meeting, we pray that the Spirit of the Lord might be with us. We pray that the deliberations might be guided by Thee and might serve the good of the population of this borough. And we ask these things and leave this prayer in the name of Thy Son, the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Welcome everyone to this brand new refurbished council chamber, and I've got a few more words on that in the mayor's announcements. First of all, we'll start with the agenda as printed. We'll start with item number We'll take item number 2. Before we go on to item 2, members are reminded that the procedure rules for the Budget Council meetings differ slightly to ordinary council meetings, and I refer you to the Budget Council procedure rules on page 3 of tonight's papers. So we'll move on to item 3, and that's confirmation of minutes. And I will propose from the Chair that the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 5th of February 2018 be confirmed as a correct and true record of our last meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to second that proposition.
Okay, thank you. Could we have a vote, please? All those who agree, thank you. That's fine, thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. We'll take item agenda number 4 on the agenda. That's the mayor's announcements. On the mayor's announcements, as I was saying before, a warm welcome to this newly refurbished council chamber with its 21st technology. Now, many thanks go to the officers and the members of the Accommodation Working Group. Mr. Paul Walker, the Director of Development Services, has worked so hard in getting this from the drawing board to what we have tonight. So thanks go to Paul. On the mayoral side, we held a fundraising event here at the Town Hall called in the Ruby Hall Woodlands suite, 6:30 for 7 o'clock. And the entertainment is provided by Diva. That's a local well-known group. It's a 3-part vocal harmony group. The Toastmaster is Mr. Colin Ballard, who is no stranger to us, and the DJ services are by David Worley. Up to now we have 176 guests attending, so if you would like to attend, there's only a few places left. This year we have a one-off Respect Awards ceremony taking place. We have 38 Respect nominations from our various schools in Fylde, and the panel will sit on the 12th of March at the Town Hall. And what we'll be doing is going through all those nominations. The actual event, the actual awards evening, will be on the 10th of April in the new Village Hall at Wheaton. Attending that is Mr. David Cam, DL, who will be presenting the winners with an award, and all the nominees will receive a certificate for their own personal CV. So that's all I have to say on the mayor's announcements. So we'll take the next item on the agenda item number 5, and that's the Chief Executive's communication. Chief Executive.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's probably more guidance than announcement. We will find the easiest way to use it is just press the button that says MIC, Mike, when you're talking, and when you've finished, unpress it. The chairman does have a button that clears everything. Too complicated, and it's going to remain on, unlike mine, which keeps going off now and again. I'm sure we'll get used to it in a couple of meetings, and we'll have got rid of any technological teething problems. Thank you.
So agenda item 6, that's questions from members of the council, and there are no questions from members of the council this evening. So we'll go straight on to item agenda number 7, questions from members of the public, and there are no questions from members of the public this evening. So we'll go straight on to agenda item 8, the main topic of this evening's agenda papers. That's the medium-term financial strategy. And I'd like to invite Councillor Super Zachary to introduce this item.
Yes, on. Great. Mr. Mayor, colleagues, it is my privilege this evening to introduce the 2018-19 budget for Fylde Council, which reflects another excellent year of sound financial management. I am only the warm-up act. I will shortly hand over to the Chairman of Finance and Democracy Committee, Councillor Karen Buckley, who will propose the Council budget and, as usual, take us through the details. However, as leader of the Council, I would like to express how proud I am that this Council continues to go from strength to strength in probably the most challenging time in the history of local government, delivering high-quality services with a diminishing resource, and to thank all those, both members and officers, who have contributed to this success story. These words are similar to what I have said for the past few years at this point, but they are still pertinent, and I am not ashamed of repeating myself, quite the reverse. Members and officers have worked together to deal with the austerity cuts year on year for the last 7 years, taking this council to a robust financial position, one that many local authorities are finding it very difficult to achieve. When I attended a Lancashire District Leaders meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we went round the table giving a brief resume of our own authorities' financial positions, it really brought home to me our enviable financial position compared to practically every other Lancashire council. While many authorities across the country as a whole are having to cut services, lose staff and dip into their reserves, at Fylde we are maintaining and improving services, whilst at the same time bolstering our finances, so that we can continue to perform in the challenging circumstances that are set to continue for the life of our financial forecast. There has been and will be no let-up of reviewing what we do and the way we do it, in order to achieve the efficiencies that have created the capacity to manage more effectively with the resources that we have, to deliver more for less. Members of this council have had to make tough budget decisions over the last few years to ensure that we continue to deliver value for money for our residents, whilst at the same time fulfilling our statutory responsibilities. The budget presented before you tonight will ensure that this council stays on course. There is investment where needed, but at the same time we will retain the capacity to deal with the challenges that are clearly outlined in the risks included in the report. The financial footing we have achieved by approving sound and sensible budgets over the past few years is allowing us to deliver the strategic priorities for the borough as set out in our corporate plan. Not only do we offer core services to a high standard, but we support facilities that many other district authorities have had to forego, including 2 pools, a theatre, and this summer will see the opening of the greatly anticipated water feature on the promenade, on the site of the former paddling pool, unused for many years, probably since I was a child there. It is also due to our vision and financial prudence that we are meeting tonight in a superb new chamber, which reflects the final internal improvements of the lengthy accommodation project. I would ask that my colleagues in this chamber support the proposed budget for 2018-19, so that together we can continue the excellent work we have achieved to date. Colleagues, before I finish, I would like to pay tribute to the excellent work of Paul O'Donoghue and his team throughout the year, and particularly in the preparation of this budget, and also to the Deputy Leader, Councillor Karen Buckley, for her skilled leadership of the Finance and Democracy Committee, and the countless hours which I know she dedicates to all matters financial for Fylde Council with such a successful outcome. Colleagues, it is with great pleasure that I now invite the Chairman of Finance and Democracy Committee to propose the 2018-19 budget for Fylde Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too, before proposing the budget, would like to say some thank yous. It's important to acknowledge the good work of this council, its officers, the senior management team, budget holders and members, all of whom contribute to the good performance that Fylde Council has sustained over a number of years. In terms of our financial controls, they have been transformed, and I would like to place on record my own thanks to our Section 151 officer Paul O'Donoghue, his deputy Paul Swindles, and all the finance team for their expertise and diligence. All of tonight's recommendations, Mr. Mayor, save for the council tax resolution itself, which is set out on everyone's desks, have been through the committees, and as I have observed, have been welcomed by members on both sides of the chamber. When I joined the council in 2007, urgent action was needed to avoid dipping below the recommended level of reserves. This was quickly followed by the financial crash in 2008, and thereafter a phasing out of revenue support grant. We have weathered these storms, not only weathered them, but have built healthy reserves so that we can again invest in the borough to make lasting improvements for residents and visitors to enjoy. To supplement this, our officers show great tenacity in bidding for grants, and 2 of those deserve special mention. The £17.5 million Environment Agency grant for the upgrade of our sea defences, and the £165,500 development grant from the Heritage Lottery Fund to prepare a second round bid for restoration and improvement of Fairhaven Lake and Gardens. It is worth saying that I sat in a meeting not too long ago where an opposition councillor said in public that they believe the sea defence project would never happen. This Conservative-led council has a track record of delivering, and this very chamber is testament to that. Mr Mayor, as is usual in the report, the risks to the financial health of this authority are set out. They can be found from pages 28 through to 34 in relation to the revenue budget, and on pages 37 to 39 in respect of the capital programme. Members will be aware that high risks are a feature on the Council's revenue budget. The policy on new homes bonus, a significant income stream for Fylde, has been revised so that we now receive 4 years' contributions instead of 6, and only after a build-out rate exceeds 0.4% growth. Business rate retention of 100% has been revised to 75%, and details of how this will affect local authorities are not yet available, nor how the fair funding review, presently under consultation, will play out. Our pooling for business rates with the other Lancashire authorities has been accepted by government for next year, but not yet beyond. The employer's pay award to staff, offered at 2%, has not been accepted by the unions. I realise this is dry, technical and full of government speak, and members may be tempted to zone out. But I mention it to highlight the context in which we set the budget and the reason for proposing a 2.99% increase in council tax, which equates to £5.85 per annum on a Band D. You will see this as set out on Appendix E on page 51. The column headed 2018-19 at the foot shows the council tax average increase of £5.85 on a Band D property. Whilst we are talking about revenue, could I also point out the other proposal that impacts the revenue budget, which is to support the Community Projects Fund in the sum of £20,000 for 18-19. Bids from community groups are overseen by the Mayor, and I'm sure past mayors will recall some very worthy schemes. This is detailed in Appendix F on page 52, where you will find our other proposals for capital spend, and I will simply run through them as they have all been before the relevant committees. So at Appendix F, the budget proposals for capital items are for a public realm scheme in Ansdell Fairhaven to complete the works in the sum of £110,000, public realm schemes in Kirkham, Wood Street, St Anne's as well in the sum of £29,000 and £50,000 respectively, a development scheme for staining playing fields in the sum of £50,000, and storage facilities for the Town Hall Arts Store to improve those in the sum of £50,000. Members, in the report, our Section 151 officer confirms that the recommendations before you provide the Council with a robust financial position, and that is not only for the forthcoming year, but for the life of the forecast. Those recommendations, the recommendations in the report, are set out on page 8, right at the outset, and they are supplemented, as I have mentioned, by the papers on the desk. So turning to those recommendations, and to summarise them, they are A, to approve Appendix E, which I've referred to on page 51, B, to approve the budget proposals and the changes to reserves and balances, Appendices F and H, C, to approve the 5-year capital programme in Appendix G, D, approve the updated reserves and balances policy in Appendix H, E, approve an average Band D council tax of £201.61, F, approve the special expenses policy in Appendix I, G, approve the schedule of fees and charges in Appendix J. And H and I is to approve the Treasury management policy and strategy. And K is on the desk in front of you to approve the council tax resolution, which gives details of the council tax in all areas of the borough. Mr. Mayor, I am proud to serve on this council amongst some great colleagues. We share a keen focus on providing value for money and giving the very best for our residents across the borough in some challenging times. There is always more to be done, and we will not lose sight of that. I propose the recommendations.
Councillor Small.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fazakerley, Councillor Buckley and Councillor Small. In accordance with the Budget Council procedural rules at this point in the agenda, I would ask firstly Councillor Nolte and Councillor Silverwood if they could please indicate at this stage if they intend to make another budget recommendation or have an or have any amendments. Could you possibly indicate now?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we do.
Not an alternative
But not
budget.
an alternative budget.
Simply two amendments.
And have the amendments been handed in?
They have.
Thank you. Councillor Mulholland, do you have any amendments tonight?
No, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Hayhurst, do you have any amendments tonight? Amendments, and that's in line with para 13.5 of the Constitution. So, does anyone wish to speak on the substantive motion, please? Let me just clarify that. Does anyone wish to speak on Councillor Buckley's recommendation?
Assuming nobody else wishes to speak, Mr. Mayor. Right, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I am standing to 2018-19 as encompassed within the medium-term financial strategy. I hope and trust that this budget will be supported across the council chamber, as it is, above all, signalling a robust and sustainable financial direction for this council. Members should be proud of the generally positive economic journey the council has made, with solid finances, financial competence across all areas, in marked contrast, I think we need to say, to many councils up and down the country at this time, services maintaining high standards and customer confidence, and capital schemes being undertaken across the borough as a whole. This council is delivering projects whilst at the same time providing value for money on the services that we provide. Looking at the medium-term financial strategy, we are well placed to deal with the uncertainties ahead, as have been outlined. The biggest one, of course, is the reduction in the local government settlement, which tends to move downwards year by year, and also changes to new home bonus, which has been brought out, as well as the general uncertainty about business rate retentions, which we still don't have a definitive answer to. But to reiterate, this council is in a good position to look forward with confidence. And that view has been further reinforced when our external auditors from KPMG gave the council recently an unqualified opinion. It's good to see capital schemes in various parts of the borough, and all committees ambitious in pursuing schemes so that residents can see improvements taking place that will mean Fylde continues to offer value for money a clean and green environment, a vibrant economy, a great place to visit, but most of all, a great place to live. Mr Mayor, I urge all members to support this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Small. I'm sorry I missed Councillor Nixon wishes to speak.
Mr Mayor, the Friends of Sustaining Open Spaces is a friends group, and they've worked relentlessly consulting with residents, adults and children alike, and they've created a design brief for the drainage and the improvement of the leisure facility at our field. The open space is a valuable commodity and is used regularly, but is in desperate need of drainage and improvement to make it a safe environment for the use of the football players, teams of which from all over the borough attend. Also for social gatherings, for the Staining Gala, for locally run vintage cars, a fun dog show, everything that's gone on that field. So without the investment, I feel the events will soon stop as the field will be rendered unsafe. The group have also compiled a 10-point plan aided by Fylde Borough Council. The cost of the scheme is £285,000, with the remainder of the funding to be set from the 106 monies from the Johns Homes developments that have been erected in Staining. The Parish Council are also going to help with the funding, and the local, it's called FOS, are going to fund some of their own money. I support the budget. It's good for Staining, it's good for the communities, it's good for the growth of the Fylde, and without suitable outdoor spaces, what have we all got? So I support the budget as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nixon. Sorry. Sorry, I do beg your pardon. You wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll keep this very brief, which all members will be pleased to hear. I'd just like to offer my full support for the budget, and like to say that all the proposals set out in the agenda papers, and the proposals and recommendations, and all those set out in the papers that are on our desk tonight, went before the last meeting of the Finance and Democracy Committee and passed through there with flying colours, as it were. And I don't recall any demurring with any aspect of the budget as such. So I'd just like to say I'm quite surprised to find that we have 2 amendments before us tonight. So I'd be interested in what the amendments are, but I can't for the life of me imagine what they might be. And I'd like to put on record my full support for the budget that's before us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nolte, you wish to speak?
Confused by the substantive motion being before amendments, but then I think we went through this last year, which is why I didn't indicate to speak before. I'm not, I'm happy with the budget generally, apart from the 2 amendments we have. And I recognise all the work done by Paul O'Donoghue and the team, and I think, we're in a very good position. But the one thing I have a problem with, and I've mentioned this before, and I think I'm probably the only person that has this problem, but I have a problem with the amount held in various reserves. And we now have almost 5 times the minimum amount in the general reserves that we need for a council of our size, as well as the specific reserves to make sure that we keep everything on track. Given that not many of our residents actually look in detail at our budget reports, I'm surprised how many residents have actually commented to me about the large level of our reserves, while we're prepared to increase our council tax by quite a large percentage. I'm not going against tonight's budget, but I would ask that we look at the level of our reserves, all our reserves, specific or not, before we sit here in March next year to be certain that we need the levels we're holding. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Knowlton. Councillor Redcliffe.
Yes, I'm standing with my iPad here just to show that I occasionally can use this, you see, in public as well as in private. But I want to basically take this opportunity to say that I share a pride in being a Fylde councillor. I share a pride in being associated with this budget. And I don't think any of us here in this council chamber ought to assume that it is that easy to produce a budget that provides value for money services, but at the same time allows benefit our communities and those who live in them. And I specifically wanted to just mention the three that went through planning. I'm particularly proud of the Ansell and Fairhaven scheme, because I know this is obviously a phase 4 development that we're looking at, and it's a considerable amount of money. But when you judge public realm works, as many of you know, you look at social, environmental benefits. You look at the things that actually benefit the local community. And when you look at Ansdell and when you look at Woodlands Road, you look, for example, at a strengthening village, urban village developing, and you look at 36 units, all currently occupied and flourishing. But it doesn't stop at Ansell and Fairhaven, does it? The good news continues, because when you look down the list, we come to Kirkham Town Centre, and we look at £20,000 that is being spent there. But significantly, in terms of Kirkham, look at the money that it's also attracting because of that £20,000. The full scheme is £60,000, but you're also getting from 106 contributions 21,000 and 10,000 from Kirkham Town Council. They do add up, by the way, Councillor Nilty. You were looking a little bit puzzled, but they do add up. And then we come to St Anne's, Wood Street, and we see that this scheme is involving £50,000 of investment. We mustn't take these sums lightly. They make a huge difference. They make people who live in those communities care for those communities, value the communities perhaps far more than before that public realm investment. And those projects are only possible because of the way that this council runs its financial affairs, and because of the prudent management skills of people like Councillor Buckley and the finance team that we see partly sitting over there. So I think as councillors, we ought to be rightly proud of this budget, which represents a well-run council and one that we should all be proud of.
Thank you, Councillor Redcliffe. Councillor Pittman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to pay tribute to the work that has been done on Tourism Recreation Committee and the project which basically sees the essential work for safeguarding London St Anne's art collection, which has been a problem for many, many years. And it's exceptional that this year, when so many councils are struggling, that we've been able to put a substantial amount of money into the preservation of something that is precious but is not seen by as many people as we would like to view that collection. We obviously see works of art in this building, but there's so many things down in the cellar that really need a lot of money, a lot of work to make sure that we do not lose them. And it's good that this year this money has been invested and that we will be able to show these works in the future, and it's a remarkable achievement to our team that we've been able to do it this year. I think that it's testimony to the way that we do keep money in reserve so that we can spend it wisely on essential projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pittman. Councillor Little.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I think it's all been said. But I support this. I mean, Councillor Nixon said everything that I was going to say about staining, and Councillor Pittman has said things in support that I was going to say about the storage, you know, the 50,000. You know, this is a precious resource, this art, and the deterioration will continue. So our art expert, well, we've got an art expert officer, and she's got expertise, and she's told us that we need to look after this, and it's been a long time coming. It will impress the Art Society, so hopefully that might bring in some more funding. But I am so pleased that we can do this. I mean, 50,000. Sorry if I've gone off. But thank you very much, and thank you to Councillor.
Councillor Little. Maybe I should remind everyone, and I should have done this at first, if we can turn our mobile phones off, please. Are there any other speakers, please, on the substantive motion? No? Right. Could I ask Councillor Buckley, would you wish to sum up at all, or not?
Mr Mayor, you wish me to sum up on the substantive motion now, not after any amendments?
I'm going to the amendments afterwards.
So sum up on this now.
Yes.
I think the only, thank you very much. I think the only thing to come back on is to reassure Councillor Nulty really about the level of reserves that we have. And the reason for doing so is to help make sure this council can weather the storm ahead. I'm sure that's appreciated. And it also that we can invest in the borough, and you've seen some of that gone through tonight. Just and to reassure you that we're not at all out of sync with other surrounding district authorities. Of the 12 authorities in Lancashire, so not counting the unitaries or Lancashire County Council, when you look at their total of general funds and earmark reserves, so look at their total reserves, then 4 of those district councils have slightly less general fund and earmark reserves than Fylde, and 7 have greater levels of reserve than Fylde, and in some instances quite significantly greater. So I hope it reassures Councillor Nulty that we're not an outlier at all in the way that we manage our reserves. And also it's important that it does mean we can, as I say, weather the storm ahead and invest in the borough. Thank you.
You to sum up again after the amendments. Take the amendments in order. We have the first amendment from Councillor Silverwood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. First of all, can I give Councillor Mrs O's apologies, her being poorly and that of her husband as well. And I think it's 30 plus years that she's attended budget, so I think perhaps got off lightly tonight with Liz not being here. I too would like to thank Mr O'Donoghue and his team for all the hard work and effort throughout the year handling our finances. We're still under severe pressure to provide a level of service that we're proud of due to the loss of funding from the government and Lancashire County Council. Last year, Fylde introduced a green waste subscription. This initially was supposed to just cover the cost of handling green waste, but later, when questioned, we were told that the objective of charging for the green waste collection is to try and recoup the loss of the Lancashire County Council grant of £763,000, which ceases in this new financial year. It is our duty as a council to deliver a public service. Charging for this service should be either to support or cover the cost not to have the objective of making a profit. As of this morning, the final figure for 17-18 green bin subscriptions is 17,303. I appreciate it is more difficult to be accurate about the actual costs of providing this service because of sharing drivers, vehicles, etc. But I do believe it is our duty to be honest, transparent, and quite frankly, simply provide easy to understand accounts for all our residents. So the question is it the Council's objective to cover the cost of green waste collection, or is it there to help shore up our finances as a result of losing Lancashire County Council's grant? For the purpose of our accounts being open and transparent, I would like to move once again, as last year, that the cost of the green waste service is accounted for separately in the accounts, and I do have a seconder on that, Mr. Mayor.
Happy to second that and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll read the amendment out and then for the purpose of our accounts being open and transparent, I propose once again, as last year, that the cost of the green waste service is accounted for separately in the accounts. Are there any speakers on the amendment? Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not particularly on the amendment. It's more a question of is this an amendment? Is this not about the method of presenting the accounts rather than an amendment to what we have in front of us tonight?
It is in addition to what we have tonight.
Well, I question that this is a genuine amendment. I understand what the member is saying. I personally don't have a problem with it. I think it will be helpful if it was done separately. I don't see that as amending the budget. So I'm sorry, but I think this is a little bit ludicrous, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mulholland. Every member has a right to place an amendment.
Yes. Honest and open and transparent. Well, I do believe that the figures which Councillor Silverwood refers to can be seen and heard in operational management. The committee has received and published these figures in the past, and therefore there is nothing about these figures that actually is secret, and operational management does require to see what has been going on and has been giving those, and that will happen this coming year. So I do not think we need to be more honest and open than we actually are. The reference to a profit being made I find quite odd, because as you probably know, and if you've researched this at all, you find that other authorities actually are charging more than Fylde. Our £30 is much less, significantly less than what other authorities are charging, and we certainly will never make a profit out of the green waste subscriptions. They will not equal and they will not exceed what Lancashire County Council once gave as a subsidy. So there's no profit made at all. And I am very surprised that this one continues to come up, because if any inspection of how much has been, how many subscribers we have and how much has been made will never produce a profit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pittman. Councillor Small.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In actual fact, I'm probably going to repeat a lot of what's just been said, actually. The Green Waste subscription scheme has only been running for a part year. It only starts its first full year in the new financial. And it's £25, and then obviously 19 is going to be the first full year of the scheme. It's a subscription scheme. the numbers are not going to be certain. We can't guarantee that the numbers that we had last year will be exactly the same numbers we have next year. Some people opt in, some people opt out. And that is the very nature of a subscription scheme, that people either buy into. So there's no guarantee of future funding. And I will actually take exception to what's been said, because I've been sitting on committees where the full figures have been released. And I know they've been discussed at operational management as well as finance and democracy. So they have been in front of members. There's nothing there to hide on this particular one at all. It is there to try and kind of cover the costs as best we can. As was pointed out, there's a black hole of £763,000, I believe, which will take some finding. On the figures that Councillor Silverwood gave, I did a quick calculation, which would be about 519,000. Now, I realise there are slight differences on that, but I do emphasise we haven't actually run the scheme for one full year yet. It's just been part year, and there will be teething troubles, and no doubt we will get better this next one. So I would just say, really, to people to bear with what we've got, because it is open and transparent.
Thank you, Councillor Small. Speakers on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'm right in saying, and I think people should be made aware of, if they're not aware, that the scheme did go through external audit last year and was found to be sound. We are proceeding along SIPFA rules, and SIPFA rules do not require us to make an individual balance sheet of that particular service. I don't like the implication that we're trying to diddle our residents, because we're charging £30. I believe that that is the average, and certainly no higher than the average throughout Lancashire. And I think it's spurious to suggest that we're trying to make a profit out of our residents. We're simply trying to cover the costs of the monies that we have lost because of the withdrawal of the Lancashire grant. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Zackley. Any other speakers on the amendment? Councillor.
Thank you. I'm reassured by what I've heard. I don't think we have a problem with the scheme, but we want to be. The comments that we mostly hear are that whilst most people with garden waste are happy to pay for this service, they do not want to feel that this charge is being used to make a profit for the council to offset other expenditure, especially as it is a subscription and not everybody pays it. It's not part of the council tax, and therefore it's just assurance that we require really that all income must be used to provide the service and not for other projects. And something else that is not part, and I'm just saying this because I'm stood up, which is not part of the amendment, but
we can only discuss the amendment.
Well, it's
yes.
part of the garden waste. It's just
we've only got the amendment as I've got in front of me,
right.
So we can only speak on that, Councillor Nolte.
Okay. I just wanted assurance that the fiasco of paying that we do manage to get people's money that they're willing to give, but we've had a bit of a fiasco again collecting.
Thank you, Councillor.
I'm sure people will take that on board. Thank
Councillor
you.
Buckley. Sum up at all?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm surprised that there is such confusion over this issue. If you go to our corporate plan, it's very clear that we are having to look at ways in which to meet that deficit. That deficit is £763,000. We're not seeking to make a profit out of the scheme. We have been left with that huge amount of money missing from the revenue budget going forward. We have introduced green waste charge, as has many other councils. So I cannot be clearer than that. Just to address the last point Councillor Nolte made about the payments procedure, there will be a report going to the next operational management committee tomorrow. There is a report on that if she would like to go along to that committee, and she can make her points. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now take a vote on the amendment. I'll just read the amendment out again. and then we'll take a recorded vote. Tracy has very kindly agreed to list the names, and if you can just give your vote. The amendment is, for the purpose of our accounts being open and transparent, I propose once again, as last year, that the cost of the Green Waste Service is accounted for separately in the accounts. Can we take the vote, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. If members could indicate if they're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Aitken.
Against.
Councillor Ackroyd. Against. Councillor Andrews.
Against.
Councillor Anthony.
Against.
Councillor Ashton.
Against.
Councillor Blackshaw.
Against.
Councillor Brickles.
Abstain.
Councillor Buckley.
Against.
Councillor Chew.
For.
Councillor Clayton.
For.
Councillor Delma Collins.
Against.
Councillor Peter Collins.
For.
Councillor Corner.
Against.
Councillor Donaldson.
Against.
Councillor Fazakerley.
Against.
Councillor Fiddler.
Against.
Councillor Fradley.
Against.
Councillor Goodman.
Against.
Councillor Harvey.
Against.
Councillor Hayhurst.
Against.
Councillor Jakes.
Against.
Little.
Against.
Councillor Mulholland.
Abstain.
Councillor Nash.
Against.
Councillor Neal.
Against.
Councillor Nixon.
Against.
Councillor Nulty.
For.
Councillor Pittman.
Against.
Councillor Redcliffe.
Against.
Councillor Settle.
Against.
Councillor Silverwood.
For.
Councillor Small.
Against.
Councillor Wilder.
Against.
Councillor Singleton.
Against.
Councillor Thomas. Just give me a moment.
529.
The votes cast, Mr Mayor, are for the amendment 5, against the amendment 29, with 2 abstentions, so that is lost.
Right, thank you. We'll go on to the second amendment, and that's Councillor Nulty.
Thank you. Well, we have to prove we're here, don't we? Try something. Okay. This is on the capital estimates, and this is going to be popular. I can feel it. Agreement to the inclusion of the £50,000 for the improved storage facilities for the art collection has come to the council from the T&L committee, as recommended by the arts group. Whilst I can see the sense of providing adequate storage for the collection, and this is important, I feel that the arts group should be given a set of parameters for use in their future deliberations, so that they are fully aware of their remit and are realistic about what they are able to recommend to council in future and what they should be seeking from grants and elsewhere. It is for this council to decide whether it is in the business of art, what it can and will provide, if anything, towards the arts in the future. The discussion must be had about possible costs and any plans for generating money, rather than just expecting this council to fund and accommodate future plans. Across the country, councils are in a period of austerity, and nationally, many councils are finding that they cannot sustain spending on the arts when other essential services have to take priority. If we were to consult with our residents, would they see funding the arts as a priority, or would they prefer to see their essential services protected and enhanced? This is a debate which must be had, and I therefore move that the arts group be given a set of parameters to follow when discussing the future of the Fylde art collection, and that any future decisions relating to the art collection be fully debated by full council. Thank you.
Have a seconder, Councillor Nulty.
I think I do.
Mr Mayor, I'll stand to second that and also reserve the right to speak.
Are there any speakers on the amendment? Councillor Little.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I don't know where Councillor Nulty is coming from, because we've had a discussion. We had the Arts Working Group, and we have discussed with the Arts Working Group where we're going to go with this. I mean, this is just the first step, you know, to stop the deterioration of the arts. So from there, from the Arts Working Group, we could say, right, well, we need somewhere for it to display to the public, maybe have a cafe attached, you know. So this is just the first step, and there will be parameters, but you know, I don't think there will be parameters, because it's a flowing and thoughtful meeting from the group, and they've all got all ideas. So I'm afraid I won't be voting against that, voting for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Little. Councillor Small.
Say on this one. However, from a budget point of view, it's a bit confusing, because I don't actually think you're opposing the 50,000. So from a budget angle, I don't really see that we've got actually much to debate from a budget matter.
Thank you, Councillor Small. Councillor Chew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think possibly my colleagues haven't fully understood exactly what went on with the Arts Working Group, of which I was a member. And I'm quite sure that members of this council will not think of me as shy and retiring when it comes to speaking out, particularly in these small groups. And I questioned all the way along the line about this 50,000, but I do fully accept that this council has a responsibility, a really serious responsibility, to take care of the items that were given to the council over a long period of time, which are deteriorating. We can sit here and say, as a council, we are neglecting what is an extremely valuable collection. We can't give it away, we can't sell it, we can't. I don't think it's even possible now to even hand it back to the people who donated it. It is a responsibility that we've got to take seriously, and it's something that we've got to acknowledge that at some stage money will need to be spent. And I hadn't been down to this cellar where the art collection particularly was kept, and I have to say I was appalled. I stood there and thought, no, how can this valuable millions of pounds worth of art be in this dreadful place, really at serious risk of damage, and certainly at serious risk of a constant deterioration. So for all that I fully understand that anybody would look at this and say, £50,000, what for? You know, is this what this council should be doing with that £50,000? But in this instance, I do think that it is what this council should be doing, because the art collection is of such huge value, and I think that the people of Lytham St Anne's, and that's the only thing that galls me, it is only called the Lytham and St Anne's collection, even though the rural residents, I won't say my residents, the rural residents are going to pay £25,000 of that £50,000. It's the only thing that galls me is that nobody seems to want to say it's the Fylde collection. They only want to say that it's the Lytham and St Anne's collection. But anyway, that's just a small pinprick of irritation that I do get when we talk about it. Yes, so for all that I understand where my colleagues are coming from with this, what's this £50,000 for, and should it be spent on this? And I would say that yes, we should.
Thank you, Councillor Chew. Councillor
Party. I think a bit of information is useful here, because this is not money that we are just gladly sort of handing over to spend on racking, etc. This money will help to attract grants for the future showing and seeking a more permanent home for the art collection. And we were assured that basically what we put into it will make it possible to attract grants from a number of organisations, but we won't get any if we do not invest in this collection. And this is the first step towards basically making our collection accessible, so we will get money back in future, because this is just the beginning of trying to make the best use of our collection. And it's such a valuable resource. And the Working Party was very, very supportive of this at the time. So I do concur with Councillor Chu that it's money well spent, but we will get a return on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pittman. Councillor Aiken, please.
Nulty's opinions, but I think she's made a mistake putting this amendment forward. Basically, it has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with what's in front of us. And I would suggest that arts group having parameters should go to the tourism as a committee recommendation. So I will be voting against your amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Councillor Mulholland.
Mr Mayor, once again, I don't see that this is an amendment. We seem to be debating now £50,000 inclusion that hasn't been challenged. There's no amendment challenging it. Could I respectfully suggest that if you're given these in advance, in writing, that the Mayor and the senior officers really look at these closely to determine whether or not they are in fact an amendment? Because I'm sorry, after 20 odd years as a councillor, they just do not ring true as amendments to me. As Councillor Aiken said, this would have been appropriate to go to a committee to discuss, as the other one would have been appropriate to go to committee. It's nothing to do with the budget, it's not an amendment. Yeah. And if I win a vote, Mr Mayor, I shall abstain again, because I really think I'm starting to look like a fool voting on things like this.
Thank you, Councillor Mulholland. All I would have to say is
yes, I understand that, Mr Mayor.
any speakers on the amendment? And could I ask Councillor Nolte, Councillor Silverwood? Yes, you reserve the right to speak. Sorry.
This amendment, even though I understand why it's being challenged, but we are at a budget, we are talking about £50,000. I think all we're trying to simply do is ensure that this doesn't turn into a blank cheque, that it isn't just turn into a hobby for a few individuals who are very interested and keen on it, and that we do have those assurances that it will act as match funding to bring more monies in, and that it isn't just a constant topping up by this council, because we do have responsibilities. I agree with my colleague, Councillor Chu, that it should be Fylde art and not Lytham St Anne. So I think you need to shout a bit louder on that one, Maxine. I understand why people are saying it's not an amendment. However, there are those times when you feel that you need to just make some comments at a budget time when a spend of £50,000 is coming out of the capital. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Silverwood.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Would you like to move any more amendments? I think it's quite fun that for Councillor Chu to be appalled at anything is such a surprise, I must say. And for Councillor Nolte to complain about our level of reserves, and then it's ironic that she's now complaining that we're spending some of that money. Any capital expenditure, as Councillor Nolte knows, will go before Finance and Democracy Committee, a committee on which she sits, and an unfunded capital licence will come before this full council. So there's ample opportunity to debate it there. But it's quite right what's been said. This is not a matter for Budget Council. This is a matter for committee. And the members that raise their concerns can go before committee, have the right to speak, and bring those concerns there. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. It will be a recorded vote as 13.5.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, could you read out the proposal, please?
I do beg your pardon, I'm sorry. The amendment is the arts group be given a set of parameters to follow when discussing the future of Fylde art collection, and that any future decisions relating to the art collection be fully debated by full council.
Members, again, if you could indicate if you are for, against or abstaining. Councillor Aitken.
Against.
Councillor Aykroyd. Councillor Andrews. Councillor Anthony. Councillor Ashton. Councillor Blackshaw. Councillor Brickles. Councillor Buckley. Councillor Chew. Councillor Clayton. Councillor Collins, Delma Collins. Councillor Peter Collins. Councillor Corner. Councillor Donaldson. Councillor Fazakerley. Councillor Fydler. Councillor Fradley. Councillor Goodman. Councillor Green. Councillor Nash. Councillor Neal. Councillor Nixon. Councillor Nulty. Councillor Pittman. Councillor Redcliffe. Councillor Settle. Councillor Silverwood.
I'll support my colleague and say for.
Councillor Small. Councillor Wilder. Councillor Singleton.
Against.
Councillor Thomas.
331 and 2.
And the votes are 4. There were 3 votes against, 31 and 2 abstentions, so that amendment is lost.
Right. So the amendment was lost and there's no further amendments. So I'll move to vote on the original motion. That's Councillor Buckley's motion for the recommendation of tonight's budget. We'll do that by a recorded vote as per the Constitution. And again, Tracy, can I ask you to do the same?
Yes, again, if members could indicate for, against or abstaining. Councillor Aitken. Councillor Ackroyd. Councillor Andrews. Councillor Anthony. Councillor Ashton. Councillor Blackshaw. Councillor Brickles. Councillor Buckley. Councillor Chew. Councillor Clayton. Councillor Delma Collins. Councillor Peter Collins. Councillor Corner. Councillor Donaldson. Councillor Fazakerley. Councillor Fydler. Councillor Fradley. Councillor Goodman. Councillor Harvey. Councillor Hayhurst. Councillor Jakes. Councillor Kirkham. Councillor Little. Councillor Mulholland. Councillor Nash. Councillor Neal. Councillor Nixon. Councillor Nulty. Councillor Pittman. Councillor Redcliffe. Councillor Settle. Councillor Silverwood. Councillor Small. Councillor Wilder. Councillor Singleton. Councillor Thomas. And there were 33 votes for the budget with 3 abstentions, so the budget is carried.
Thank you, Tracy. Committee membership nominations, that's on page 124 of tonight's papers. And can I ask Councillor Fazakerley, please, to propose this item?
Yes, Mr Mayor, thank you. Mr Mayor, colleagues, I can't even find the page because I've forgotten it was on Oh, here it is. Yes, I would like to move the recommendation to appoint Councillor Sandra Pittman as a full member of the Planning Committee, and I have a seconder.
Mr Mayor, I second that proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Any speakers on the... Can I have a show of hands, please? Recommendations? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? One abstention. Right, that is carried. Thank you. Concludes tonight's budget meeting. Can I thank you all for attending? It's been